What's up, everyone? I'm Fabio Campanella from the Campanella Group. I am a tax and investment advisor in Oakville, Ontario, Canada. And today I'm going to help my cousin and realtor extraordinaire, Vito La Balestra, understand the tax implications of buying a rental property in South Florida for Canadians.
Fab, I often get this question from buyers. How should Canadians legally structure their properties in Florida? Whether it's an investment property, should it be through a corporation? Should it be in their personal name? We get this over and over again, and I know it's always a potentially a different answer, but how would you handle this question?
So it depends on the individual. When you're purchasing a property in Florida or running any type of business in a foreign jurisdiction, you're going to be getting advice from local advisors, right? Local advisors here in Florida, I find that they always run to an LLC structure, because that's what works for locals.
Right. Yeah, I hear that. 'Cause put it in an LLC,
Exactly.
It protects you from liability. You're good. It's a corporation. I don't know the tax implications. I know from in the U.S. it flows through to your personal tax return, so it really doesn't even matter. Unless you're an S corp, then you have other like benefits for like Medicare and Social Security tax and stuff like that. None of that really matters to Canadians.
Exactly. So you always have to take it on an individual basis, right? Where's the money coming from? What kind of property are you buying? Is it a single family home? Is it a 12-plex apartment building? What are the financing companies and the banks looking for? Sometimes if you're getting a lot of financing for a commercial property, the bank gives you no choice. It has to be a corporate structure, right?
Right, we've seen that in the past, whether it's U.S. or Canadian, where they're pushed to put it in an LLC because it's an investment property, and in the event of non-payment, a lender can come in and it's a lot easier to foreclose on the property if it's in a company's name instead of an individual's name. So I see them push for that.
Exactly. So you're going to have problems on both sides of the border, right? You're going to want to structure it the best way you can to benefit you in Canada, but you may have a roadblock here in the US based on local statutes, local laws, local customs, right? So it's going to be an individual decision. Now, the simplest way to do it is to simply buy the property yourself. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. It's the cheapest, it's the simplest. However, if you are worried about liability or exposing yourself to liability, if you have, let's say, multiple units, you may want to consider a corporate structure, right? You don't want to necessarily run to an LLC, which is commonly used, because an LLC is not recognized under Canadian tax law as a corporation, right? And you may have problems extracting money out of the LLC to Canada, for example. You may not want to run to a C Corp specifically, because if you run to a C Corp, then you have withholding taxes coming out to Canada when you distribute profits. So it all depends. Where's the money coming from? Is the money coming from your own pocket personally, and it's just a single family home? Buy the property yourself is often the recommendation. But if your money is trapped in a Canadian corporation, you may actually want to purchase the property through the Canadian corporation here in Florida.
Right, and that would allow you to basically harvest cash out of your Canadian corporation without paying tax on that money and purchasing an asset in the US with it. Is that kind of the tactic there?
That's one of the tactics, yes.
Got it.
But there's also potential for liability limitation as well.
Sure.
The overall theme, though, is the more complex you get, the more complex and more expensive it's going to get for you to make that purchase.
Sure, and also understandably, more importantly, why you want to sit down with an advisor like yourself and potentially even bring in an attorney, right? Because we haven't even touched on it, but none of us live forever. So you take a property, you put it in your individual name, you buy it, and then the unforeseen thing happens, and now you have this property trapped in U.S. probate and litigation, right?
Right. So you're always going to want to involve, in this particular situation, when you are buying a rental property, in a foreign jurisdiction, you're going to want to engage professionals that understand the local laws and the local customs. You're going to want to engage professionals that understand your domestic laws and your domestic customs, but you also want professionals that understand the cross-border issues.
Absolutely.
Okay. So when you are buying a property in the United States, Florida, or any state, it doesn't matter, okay? From a tax perspective, you're gonna have at minimum, three governing pieces of legislation. It's going to be the local legislation in the United States, it's going to be Canadian domestic legislation, and it's going to be the Canada-US tax treaty, right? So you have to juggle all three of those things. So it's not simply a matter of, well, I'm just going to go to a random CPA here in Florida, because they may not be thinking from the perspective of a cross-border transaction. They may only be thinking from a local perspective. You don't want to ask your Canadian CPA, who has no knowledge of the US. You need to get together a team of experienced individuals that understand the cross-border transaction.
Of course, and we have such a great team, and we've dealt with several clients and your cross-border specialists that understand that to help navigate and steer our clients, depending on what their specific scenario is, to give them the best solution for that.